Good evening. My name is Mike Fitzpatrick, and I chose to do my presentation on cost management. I work for Lockheed Martin in the Propulsion Development Lab. A good representation of what we do is if you've ever seen the movie Apollo 13, when Tom Hanks is driving the Apollo 13 capsule by pulling on the joystick, and different thrusters fire according to whatever way he pulls the joystick. That's kind of what we do, but in a more a satellite perspective instead of a crew module capsule kind of thing. Um, what we do is we don't get the satellite to space. We just move it around once it's in space. Is a is what we do. So we take components like fuel tanks, tubing, thrusters, filters, valves, and put them all together to make a propulsion system. The picture you see on the screen is not a Lockheed satellite, but the 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 thrusters firing is a representation of kind of moving the satellite in space, which is what we do. Um, at Lockheed Martin, I've had the pleasure of building several satellites like Juno, Grail, Maven, and several government contracts. And we will be building a satellite called OSIRIS-REx and a lander called InSight. So for all of you that have had science instruments on any of these satellites, I've had a hand in building the satellite. Working for Lockheed Martin, which is a big government contractor, I've had the pleasure of dealing with both kinds of contracts. The two different types of contracts are variable cost contracts and fixed cost contracts. Variable cost contracts, also known as cost plus contracts, are typically government contracts. That's the only time I've ever seen a cost plus contract used. Quotes are usually budget estimates, which according to the PMP exam prep, a budget estimate is minus 10% to plus 25% of the actual cost. And the schedule is based heavily on earned value. So when it comes to creating a variable cost contract, there's more of an open checkbook essentially from the government. So they want you to build, this. They really don't care how much it costs. They just know what they want and they want you to build it now. Is how it works out. So usually a variable cost contract, they write the contract with X number of deliverables in mind. It may be propulsion systems, it may be hardware, it might be software, it might be cupcakes. They can come back at any point in time and say, I want this many more of whatever. And to me, my experience with variable cost contracts are that they tend to be more of an old school way of project management, where the customer solves problems by just throwing money at it, essentially. I've actually had the pleasure of being in a status meeting of a variable cost contract where the customer came to us asking why we weren't spending more money, which is unheard of in a society and an era where everyone is worried about the bottom dollar and saving as much money as they can and getting everything better, faster, cheaper. So it's when creating a schedule and budget, everything's a little less defined because it doesn't have to be. It can be whatever. It can be more vague because they have the leeway of the blank check. Um, on the contrary, when it comes to fixed cost contracts, there's a big difference when it comes to scheduling and estimating and budgeting and everything like that. So fixed cost contracts are usually civil space, this is more of a contract that most people are familiar with, the everyday business contract. Basically, you quote a price and you're supposed to deliver on that price. Um, so so the estimates are more definite. The schedules are tighter. Um, Everything's a lot more nailed down and scrutinized because you can't go to the customer and say, hey, I need more money because I spent all of it on X instead of completing whatever, um, or this was more expensive than we originally estimated. Um, you can't do that with a fixed cost contract. Um, so when it comes to quoting a fixed cost contract, there are a lot more things you have to know. You have to nail down um, what everything's going to cost, how long it's going to take. So when it comes to creating quotes for fixed cost contracts, a lot of it comes from historical data. For example, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter was built before I got there, um, and we built a satellite called Maven, and those two were very similar structures when it came to welding, the number of thrusters, the number of welds, the number of fuel tanks, everything like that. So they used MRO, Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter, as a baseline to create the schedule for Maven. And um, we are going to use the same type of schedule when it comes to building OSIRIS-REx, because that is a Maven and MRO type of vehicle. But along the way, with each successive satellite, we update the hours according to more accurate numbers. For example, it used to take 5 hours to fit, trim, or it used to take 3 hours to fit, trim, clean, weld, X-ray, and visually inspect satellite or a propulsion line, where now it takes 5 hours because of increased requirements from the government, NASA, increased requirements from Lockheed Martin, and just different processes to complete these. Um, so fixed price contracts and variable price contracts both get the same thing done, but they are completely different when it comes to management style. These two are where I received my information from. Thank you.